The Damian Lillard situation continues to evolve. We're getting new rumors, and for whatever reason, this deal still has not happened yet. Now, of course, at this point, the assumption has been for a while that eventually Damian Lillard is going to end up on the Miami Heat. They're going to offer Tyler Hero some stuff, some players, some picks, all that, and that's just going to have to be what Portland accepts. We've talked about this for months at this point, where Dame tried to force his way to a specific team. The NBA said that's not allowed. Dame is probably going to end up there anyway, and at this point, it's just a matter of time till he ends up in Miami. However, this has taken so long, and this has become such a drawn-out process that I've started to think that maybe there are going to be some other teams involved, because things always change within the landscape of the NBA. And now that we have more stuff to deal with James Harden and trying to figure out where all of these dominoes are going to fall, and you have to consider Portland's position in all of this and desperately trying to get the most out of Damian Lillard that they can, maybe this isn't a situation that is as cut and dry as eventually Dame is going to end up in Miami. And with that mindset, we have to have some other teams in mind that Dame could potentially go to. And the most important part of all of this is, if you're going to be a competitor in the Damian Lillard trade sweepstakes, you have to have a better trade offer than what Miami reportedly has on the table right now, which is a handful of young players and a lot of draft compensation in exchange for Damian Lillard. Now, it's not entirely difficult to find a team that has better assets out there to trade in exchange for Damian Lillard, but it is a little bit difficult to find a team that would actually be willing, given his contract, given his age, to trade all that stuff in exchange for Dame. And it seems like that's the holdup right now, is Miami has this trade offer that is or isn't on the table, but they don't feel like there's a lot of competition for Dame's services right now, so they don't know if they're really going to go all in with that. But because this is drawn out for so long and it's clear what Portland can ask for Miami and what Miami can offer, and the deal still hasn't got done, it makes me think that maybe Portland is just going to dig their heels in on this for a while. They know the direction of their franchise. They know where they're going. They know that Dame is going to get traded, that they've got Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, and presumably the assets in exchange for a Damian Lillard trade. They know they're not going to be a 50-win team this year. They know they're not a team that's competing for the postseason. They have direction. Miami, on the other hand, is in a much more desperate situation here, because they, by all reports, passed on the Bradley Beal situation in favor of assuming that Damian Lillard was going to end up with the Heat. And obviously, so far, that has not happened, and they know the direction of their franchise, but they don't know what their roster is going to look like without Damian Lillard on it. The scenario that exists here for Miami that should terrify them is going into the season, going into training camp even, without the Damian Lillard trade being finalized. And now you're asking guys like Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Martin, you're asking these guys to just show up and say, you know what, you can get traded any day now, but just go ahead and we'll continue like we are. I know we made the finals last year, had a really good season, but you're basically out the door as soon as we get this Dame thing done. And then maybe another team comes out of nowhere and makes the deal anyway and takes Dame out from under them. And then it would be really incredibly difficult, even with the culture and the franchise and the coaching that they have there, to salvage their season if they don't end up with Dame. So to me, this is starting to read more and more as a situation where Portland realizes that they do have the leverage. They can have Damian Lillard not be on their roster this year, and whether or not be on the floor this year, and whether he's on the roster or not doesn't really change their plans. They're going to develop Scoot. They're going to develop the young guys. They'd like to have the assets in exchange for Damian Lillard, but most of the assets they're getting back from Miami are just draft picks anyway, so it doesn't change their team. And they can afford to wait until training camp. They can afford to wait until the trade deadline if they want to. It's not like Dame is on an expiring contract. It's not like their season is going to change whether he's on the floor or not. They know what they're doing, whereas Miami is in a desperate situation here. When you're looking at other teams that could possibly take Dame away from them, take him, right out from under them, the Knicks are still a relative possibility here. I continue to be really skeptical of the fit of Dame alongside Jalen Brunson. Brunson was incredible for the Knicks last year. If you're looking for an opportunity for them to upgrade their roster, I'm not sure that another guard alongside Brunson of Dame's ability defensively, aka Dame's a terrible defender, I don't think that's the position they want to upgrade, but they certainly have the assets to make it work. Brooklyn is another team that has been thrown out there from the beginning of this process, but then Dame tried to force his way specifically to Miami, and then you get back to this idea of, would you be okay, trading a significant amount of stuff in exchange for Dame if Dame isn't possibly going to be happy in Brooklyn? There's a lot of other weird possibilities, like maybe the Clippers move on from the Harden thing and maybe they focus on Lillard. There are possibilities, and there are just enough other possibilities, other teams out there where Portland can truly make Miami nervous about this situation and nervous about what their year could look like if they don't end up with Dame, or if it takes too long to trade for him. And that might be the only miscalculation that Miami has made in this entire offseason, is they smartly, it seems like at this point, waited on the Bradley Beal thing because they knew that Dame was a better player for them, fit better within their roster, and overall was a better player and fit fits kind of their timeline more than what Bradley Beal does. And so that seems to be a good decision. But the thing that they might have misunderstood is how desperate Portland would be to get rid of Dame just because things get uncomfortable in exchange for a package that clearly they're not all that excited about. Now, at the end of the day, if no other team, going up to the deadline even gives a significant trade offer in exchange for Damian Lillard, he's still going to end up with the Heat. And obviously the favored situation here is for him to end up with Miami at some point this season. But it's becoming more and more realistic to me that Dame might still be in Portland during training camp, during the start of the season, whether he's actually with the team or not, or it's an excused absence from the team, or whatever the case may be. That is becoming a real possibility, and it's a risk that I'm sure that Dame's camp considered a little bit before they requested the trade, but this is always a possibility. Anytime that you're the main star on a team that's going to be going in a rebuilding direction and you have multiple years left on your contract, there's no guarantee you're going to be able to go exactly where you want to, despite the fact that that's how it works out most of the time. And there's no guarantee it's going to happen on the timeline that you want it to. Portland is in absolutely no hurry to trade Dame. That much is clear. And where exactly that leaves the rest of the NBA this offseason as they're waiting for that domino to fall is really, really interesting to me. And so the answer to the question of why has the Dame trade not happened yet, it's just because Portland doesn't want to yet. They might have gotten right now in front of them Miami's best trade offer, whatever it is, young guys, picks, contracts, the best that Miami can do in terms of what they can trade in exchange for Damian Lillard. They might have that offer on the table right now, and they know that there's no way really that Miami is going to take that offer off the table. Miami knows that the best way they can compete for a title this year is by making the Dame trade, and they've already put all these assets out there, and so it'd be really uncomfortable to bring those guys back for training camp. And so Portland can just have that in their hand and say, you know what? We know what we can get from the Heat. Let's wait a little bit here and see if there's a team that can outbid what Miami has, or even at least just match it. Because I do think there's some animosity here between Portland and Miami of like, okay, we've been loyal to Dame. We've had him here this whole time. And now all of a sudden he wants to force his way to one particular team. Someone just meet the level of this Miami offer. And then, we'll trade Dame to that other place just to, kind of screw over the whole process here for the Heat. Now, ultimately your job as a GM is to get the best return you can in exchange for Damian Lillard. And so being spiteful probably doesn't help that, but these guys are human and that's definitely still a possibility. So the reason it's taking so long, the reason it hasn't happened yet is because Portland thinks they can get more. They think they might be able to trade Dame to somewhere other than Miami, and or they're just okay waiting. Their season looks the exact same, whether they trade Dame in August, whether they had traded him in July, whether they trade him in February, their season looks the same. It's about Scoot, it's about Shaedon Sharpe, it's about the young guys, it's about the draft picks. They know they're a 30-win team. Honestly, with or without Dame, given that Dame hasn't played a ton of games because they've been shutting him down late in the season, the last couple of seasons, from the moment that they got Scoot Henderson and Dame decided this team wasn't good enough to stick around, they knew their position, they knew the direction that they were going in, and they also know that they can kind of hold that situation over the Miami Heat in this particular situation.